What's up, rap fans? I guess it's been a little while since I made one of these videos. I don't really know how or why that happened, just whatever. Though hopefully you caught my recent KD Ranks interview. Not recently done, actually it's from 2011, but recently posted. But yeah, so I don't know why it's been a little while, but it has been. But I'm back, and I think I'm back with a pretty good one. I'm kind of confident about this one, so let's go. We're going to talk about an MC you might have slightly heard of, but you probably don't know her whole story, and it's actually pretty interesting. And she's pretty dope. You know, sometimes they get these rappers, you know, who have like interesting stories, but they're also not really that good. So it's okay video, but you're not that hung up on it. Or it's a rapper who's incredible, but they kind of just did one record and that's kind of it, and it's not that interesting story. This is both. This is the PreC.I.S.E MC, and we're mostly going to focus on this record here, All Night Thing, on Luke Records 1991. But we're also going to get into her whole story, because like I said, it's pretty interesting. So All Night Thing is PreC.I.S.E's first record, and if you don't really dig in, it can seem like it's her only record, her only single anyway. And what's interesting about PreC.I.S.E is that she seems like the very last person to be on Luke Records. Now, Luke Records have had a couple people who sort of seem like they don't quite fit in with the label. You know, you're like Poison Clan, that doesn't seem like the same label to be on there with like Two Live Crew and Party Sex Music. And then you say you're like Father MC, that was kind of weird. And that's probably the second weirdest. But even weirder, really, is the PreC.I.S.E MC. She's from Brooklyn, and she couldn't be further removed from Miami hip-hop, dance, pop, any of that kind of stuff. Like, pure classic Brooklyn MC. And even though this single is probably her most kind of dance-ish, and you can kind of see why Luke Records rolled with this, it's totally Brooklyn kind of style. And when you hear like the people she's down with and what she does, like really, it's like, how did she wind up on Luke Records? I don't know. Actually, I sort of do know, and I'll get into that. But even knowing that, it just seems like a really strange misfit. I mean, all that's really a compliment, basically. Certainly, Luke Records had some great stuff, including the Poison Clan, who I mentioned, Bust Down, Home Team were fantastic. They certainly had a lot of great, exciting artists. But frankly, a lot of that whole kind of Miami-based scene was not necessarily hip-hop's shining moment, especially in the early 90s. So PreC.I.S.E MC coming completely out of left field is like a real attribute to her, because she sounds really dope, and I think would have been appreciated by a lot of fans who were not into anything else on Luke Records. Like people who would just dismiss all that stuff, be like, ugh, Miami. They would have been really appreciative of this had they known, but it never really took off. And I think that's basically why, because people saw Luke Records, and so the right audience didn't check for it. But I'm here to show you today that she was really dope. So this is the album, Precisely Done. It's her only album, 1991, Luke Records. All Night Thing is the single, the lead and only single off of this album. And one of the reasons why it didn't take off, besides the whole Luke thing, is that she doesn't really have any named producers at all. They're all guys you kind of basically never heard of. One guy I know is down with Howie T, and in fact, that's part of her story. In fact, let me just get into her history. So at the time of this album, PreC.I.S.E MC right here was 18 years old, pretty young. And actually, conveniently, she puts her whole kind of bio in the liner notes of the album here. She writes it as a news story to kind of go with the theme of the album cover and stuff. But basically, she was had the same management as Special Ed, and you can really hear the similarities. She doesn't have a voice like Special Ed, and Special Ed kind of took things even in a further crazy direction with its style, but you can definitely hear this is in some ways sort of a female Special Ed, and again, that's a compliment. So she does have one guest on this album. It's not Special Ed, although she even talks about how she plans to work with him, they're going to work together in the liner notes, and that never happened, sadly. So guess who that guest is? I'm not even, you know, you're never going to guess unless I tell you. It's Super Lover C, as in Super Lover C and Casanova Rudd, and the record is called So You Think You Got 'Em Locked. The songwriter is not a single record, it's only one track on the album. And that, of course, is an answer record to Super Lover C's classic record, Girls I Got 'Em Locked. So she's got an answer record with him, so that tells you, you know, you're thinking Luke Records? No. Pure New York, Brooklyn kind of shit all the way through. So like I said, though, I mean, it was a misfit, and so it never really took off. Not much really happened. I don't think she had a music video for the song, or if she did, it's one of those things that played once or twice on the box, and kind of that was it. She definitely didn't get any real play or promotion. You know, it just kind of came and went, which is, again, a shame, because it's a dope album. She was featured on the Luke's Hitman for the 90s EP, which is a pretty interesting, definitely worthwhile EP, because it features some exclusive unreleased stuff by some of the best acts on Luke Records, including an incredible Luan Love comeback song, which I can't believe only exists on this, and they never followed up on that with an album and everything, because that song is great. Unfortunately, though, the PreC.I.S.E MC song on here is just one of the album tracks from her album. So that's not new here, which is one of the disappointing things about the EP. And it kind of, you know, I mean, the reason why, I mean, probably two reasons why she didn't have a second album on Luke Records. One, again, it didn't pop off. There wasn't a big promotion. That's probably enough of the story. But also, of course, around 93 and stuff, around the time of this EP, Luke Records was running out of money. In Effect Records, that division closed down. Luke even remember signed to Island Records and stuff like that. So that all happened. That's why Poison Clan left the label. I mean, there's no other reason why Poison Clan wouldn't have been on Luke anymore. So that's also probably what happened to PreC.I.S.E. But the fact that it's an old song on here tells me that there probably isn't even like an unreleased PreC.I.S.E. album in the vaults of Luke Records, which is disappointing because that would have been incredible, I'm sure. And the song on this EP, which again is also on her album, features a classic instrumental which was rocked by Master Ace on his first album just the year before. So in a way really dope, although, totally recycled. But that, again, just kind of tells you the tip that PreC.I.S.E. was on, that she's doing that kind of instrumental and that kind of production. So I'm going to play a clip in a little bit, but before we get to that, a little bit more about All Night Thing and about her whole story and career. So again, this is definitely her kind of most dance-ish song. You can really hear in her kind of flow and in her wit and kind of her like punchlines and kind of the looseness with her sort of like, she's not really being jokey, but there's definitely kind of a weird playfulness in her word choice and, examples. Totally feels, again, like Special Ed in that kind of tone. And also the way she's kind of freaking the flow is actually pretty interesting. When you hear the instrumental at first and think, that's kind of dancey, you might just write her off without thoroughly listening to her, but when you actually listen to the track, she's actually being pretty interesting and kind of killing it. So when you hear her album, which has more diverse kind of tracks on there, I think you would even pick up on that more. So it was a really poor choice to introduce her. Although, in a way, on the other hand, I can totally see why they picked it, because it does have a real pop appeal to it. It is really catchy, and you can see why people would get into it. But so anyway, after All Night and that album, it kind of looks like maybe that's the end of her career, but no. And it's also, if you're looking back on her career online, it can get confusing, because if you look on sites like Discogs, there's a couple listings for PreC.I.S.E. Some are her, some aren't. One is half her and a guy named DJ PreC.I.S.E. They're kind of merged together, so it's kind of a mess. So I'm just going to break it all down right now. The next big record, and the only other one you might really know her from, at least in hip-hop, and we'll get to that in a second, boom, right here, Big Cap featuring The Ladies. This was a really big single at the time because it featured some pretty big, it's all female MCs, hence The Ladies, but The Ladies aren't a group, it's just a combination of some hot female solo artists, including Bahamadia, who was right at her peak, Lauryn Hill, who actually wasn't totally at her peak yet. It's really interesting. When this record came out, Bahamadia was kind of the bigger star, but it was right on that cusp, like just as Lauryn Hill was overtaking it. So that's at this period. You also had Unique. This Unique right here from the Bounce Squad, I have to spell it out because there are actually a number of MCs named Unique, which, by my way, is my favorite piece of irony in all of hip-hop. Just let that sink in. There's a lot of MCs who all decided to name themselves Unique. Okay, I love that. Anyway, this Unique from the Bounce Squad. And yes, PreC.I.S.E. And there was a video for this, and that did get play a lot. That did get a lot of rotation. This was on the radio, although, of course, Hot 97, Big Cap, big surprise. But so this was pretty huge single, and she was as, instrumental on there as any of the others. Of course, Bahamadia and Lauryn Hill had more star power, but PreC.I.S.E. really kind of kills it. And so, if you follow my blog and what I do, I am all about tracking down sort of obscure comebacks and that kind of thing. And PreC.I.S.E. MC, I just knew was too talented and too interesting that those records were all she had. I'm like, she's got to have something. She's got to have some kind of weird, obscure indie vinyl that nobody knows about. Sure enough, she does. Now, this one I blogged about already, so I'm not going to get too into it. But here you go, The Spot by PreC.I.S.E. This is the same PreC.I.S.E. MC. And it's a couple of years later, and it's totally, you can really feel her kind of coming into like the Notorious B.I.G. kind of smoothed out. There's an R&B chorus to it, but still very Brooklyn, but different Brooklyn. No longer Special Ed Brooklyn, but Biggie Smalls Brooklyn. And again, if you want to read more about that, that's on my blog already. But then, so she did some guest spots, including a song. She did like the guest rap on a Luther Vandross record. She did another record with Jaheim. And then she kind of disappeared. But if you look online, she's all over the place. She's got tons of new music. In the last 3 or 4 years, lots of stuff. Lots of stuff on SoundCloud. It's a lot, you get into kind of electro dance ravey kind of stuff, so not necessarily my thing, but she's rapping. I mean, it's not like she's singing or anything. Her voice and flow do sound different, but you can definitely still tell she's talented. She's definitely taking influence by all the contemporary stuff from Nicki Minaj, to house dance kind of stuff I wouldn't even listen or know about. So, pseudo not quite hip hop, but she's definitely hip hop on these tracks. And she still sounds talented, but not really my thing. My thing is absolutely this classic 1991 era stuff, including All Night Thing, which again, on surface level, when you first hear it, maybe too kind of dancey, poppy, hear that bum, 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 and it's all kind of, you know, dance music. But once you really get into it and you listen to the lyrics and the flow, I think it's actually really pretty tight. Oh, but wait, before we even I was about to play the clip, but I forgot. I mentioned I was going to tell the story of how she got on Luke Records. This is pretty damn interesting because who is her DJ? She's got some nice cutting on this album by a DJ named DJ Majesty. Okay, who's DJ Majesty? Actually, you've probably heard of him if you know your hip-hop. You know the group The King and I, as in Izzy Ice and DJ Majesty? That DJ Majesty, before The King and I, that's what he did. He did PreC.I.S.E.'s album, and they were a team, and like, he was her DJ, and they had dancers, ready, set, go, and Izzy Ice was down with them, and Izzy Ice is the one who introduced PreC.I.S.E. to Luke and made the whole Luke Records thing happen. So there are some nice cuts on this record towards the end, but really the album has more of the scratches necessarily than the single, but there's some stuff at the end. But absolutely, that is the DJ Majesty of contemporary Jeep music in 1991, before that. So again, some real shit here. PreC.I.S.E. MC. So now let's get into it. All Night Thing.